Something about the last few weeks just doesn't add up, and if you were paying close attention, you might have noticed that Jacob Fatu's recent actions could be pointing towards something much bigger than anyone expected. Not because WWE outright told us, not because a backstage report confirmed it, but because WWE has always loved planting little seeds that only make sense months later. So here's the question nobody can stop asking. Did Jacob Fatu accidentally, or maybe intentionally, set the stage for Sami Zayn to find his way back into the Bloodline story after his WWE title loss? Now, before anyone rushes to the comments saying, "That's not confirmed," relax. It isn't. This is a fan theory built on confirmed WWE events, established character history, and the way WWE has told stories in the past. Everything we're talking about actually happened on WWE programming. The theory is simply connecting the dots. And honestly, connecting dots is half the fun of being a wrestling fan. Let's start with the obvious. Jacob Fatu has become one of the most dangerous men in WWE. From the moment he arrived, he didn't exactly knock politely. He kicked the door off its hinges, probably yelled something terrifying, and immediately reminded everyone why people had been talking about him for years before he ever stepped into a WWE ring. His intensity feels different. Every promo, every entrance, every match makes it feel like someone forgot to tell him wrestling is supposed to have an off switch. Jacob wrestles like he's trying to collect insurance money from his opponents. And that's exactly why he's become such an important piece of WWE's ongoing Bloodline universe. Now let's talk about Sami Zayn. No matter how much time passes, it's impossible to discuss the Bloodline without mentioning the honorary Uce himself. That entire storyline wasn't just entertaining, it became one of the greatest character arcs WWE has ever produced. Sami went from comic relief to trusted family member to the emotional heart of the Bloodline. His friendship with Jey Uso felt genuine. His relationship with Roman Reigns became increasingly complicated. His loyalty was constantly questioned, then came the betrayal. Roman demanded impossible loyalty, Sami refused to destroy Kevin Owens. The chair shot happened, the Bloodline turned on Sami, and wrestling fans around the world collectively forgot how breathing worked for about 5 minutes. That wasn't just another angle. That was storytelling at its absolute best. Sami eventually challenged Roman Reigns, came heartbreakingly close to ending Roman's historic championship reign, and although he didn't win that match, he remained one of WWE's biggest fan favorites. Eventually, he captured championship gold alongside Kevin Owens, continued chasing major opportunities, and later found himself back in the world title picture again. More recently, Sami suffered another major setback when his pursuit of the WWE Championship ended in defeat. That part is confirmed. Here's where the theory begins. Whenever WWE has a beloved babyface lose a huge championship match, they usually don't leave that character wandering around with nothing meaningful to do for very long. Sometimes they rebuild. Sometimes they pivot. Sometimes they revisit unfinished business. And Sami Zayn has perhaps the biggest unfinished piece of business in modern WWE history, the Bloodline. Think about it. Has Sami ever truly finished his story with that family? Not really. He escaped them. He fought them. He beat members of the group. But emotionally, the scars never disappeared. Every time Bloodline drama unfolds, Sami somehow still feels connected to it. It's almost impossible not to think about him whenever family loyalty becomes the central theme. Now enter Jacob Fatu. Jacob isn't Roman Reigns. He isn't Solo Sikoa. He isn't trying to imitate anyone. His version of destruction feels more unpredictable. That unpredictability creates opportunities. If internal conflict begins growing inside the Bloodline once again, and let's be clear, this is purely speculation, someone with Sami's history suddenly becomes incredibly relevant. Because who understands that family better than someone who once lived inside it? Let's look at WWE's storytelling habits. WWE loves full circle moments. They love callbacks. They love bringing characters back into stories years after fans thought everything was finished. We've seen rivalries reignited. Former enemies become allies. Former friends become bitter rivals. Entire storylines get new chapters years later. That's why this theory isn't completely out of nowhere. It's based on patterns. Imagine Jacob Fatu continuing to dominate. Imagine power struggles beginning. Imagine different members disagreeing over leadership. Again, nothing has confirmed this. We're simply exploring possibilities. If that happened, someone outside the family, but deeply connected to its history, could become the perfect wild card. That someone
is Sami Zayn. Here's another interesting detail. Sami has never been portrayed as someone obsessed with revenge forever. His character evolves. He forgives. He grows. He questions himself. That's what makes him believable. Unlike many wrestling characters who hold grudges for decades, looking at you people who somehow remember being eliminated from a Royal Rumble 11 years ago, Sami actually changes as a person. That flexibility allows WWE to place him in almost any storyline without it feeling forced. Need an underdog? Sami fits. Need comic relief? Sami fits. Need emotional storytelling? Sami definitely fits. Need someone to stand up against impossible odds? Again, Sami fits. Now let's bring Jacob back into the conversation. Jacob's presence has raised the stakes for everyone connected to the Bloodline. Every appearance reminds viewers that this family story isn't over. It has simply entered another chapter. And every new chapter creates opportunities for familiar faces to return. Notice something WWE has done repeatedly over the years. When major factions evolve, older members or former rivals often reappear. Because history matters. History creates emotion. Emotion creates investment. Investment creates incredible television. That's Wrestling Storytelling 101. Well, maybe Wrestling Storytelling 201.
Storytelling 101 is probably just don't hit the referee unless you're wearing stripes. Speaking of history, Sami's connection to Jey Uso remains one of the strongest emotional relationships WWE has built in recent memory. Their friendship wasn't based on championships. It wasn't based on power. It was based on trust. That trust survived unbelievable circumstances. If WWE ever wanted to revisit those emotional connections, Jacob Fatu's involvement in Bloodline business could easily create the perfect excuse. Not because Jacob would invite Sami over for family dinner, and let's be honest, Jacob doesn't exactly give off, "Welcome, would you like mashed potatoes?" energy. He gives off, "I might powerbomb the dining table." But conflict creates strange alliances. That's always been true in wrestling. Now here's something else worth considering. Sami losing a championship opportunity naturally creates sympathy. Fans rally behind him after setbacks. That's been one of his defining characteristics throughout his WWE career. He falls, he gets back up, he falls again, he somehow gets even more popular. It's almost like disappointment gives Sami a temporary stat boost. Meanwhile, Jacob represents momentum. He's charging forward, while Sami has recently experienced disappointment. Those opposite trajectories could eventually intersect in interesting ways. Again, this is theory, not confirmation. One thing WWE has consistently shown is that the Bloodline story affects nearly everyone around it. Kevin Owens became involved. Cody Rhodes became involved. Randy Orton became involved. LA Knight crossed paths with the group. Countless superstars have found themselves pulled into its orbit. Why would Sami, arguably one of the story's most important characters, stay disconnected forever? That's a fair question. It doesn't mean he's returning tomorrow. It doesn't even mean he's returning next month. But eventually, it feels possible. Especially if WWE wants another emotionally charged chapter. Remember how audiences reacted whenever Sami interacted with Bloodline members? Every stare, every conversation, every near confrontation carried years of emotional baggage. That's difficult to manufacture. Most stories need months to build that kind of emotional weight. Sami already has it. Jacob simply provides a fresh reason to reopen those old wounds. Here's another layer. Jacob isn't just another powerhouse. He's changing the balance inside the faction. Whenever someone that dominant enters a family dynamic, priorities shift. Power changes people. Leadership changes relationships. History becomes important. That's exactly where someone like Sami becomes valuable from a storytelling perspective. He understands what blind loyalty can cost. He experienced manipulation firsthand. He knows the emotional consequences. If anyone could recognize warning signs inside the Bloodline before everyone else, it's him. Again, that's speculation, but it's logical speculation. There's a difference. Let's also appreciate something WWE has quietly become much better at: long-term storytelling. Not every storyline lands perfectly. We're wrestling fans. We know that. Sometimes creative decisions make us stare at the television like someone just replaced the script with refrigerator magnets. But when WWE commits to long-term storytelling, the results can be incredible. The Bloodline proved that. Cody Rhodes proved that.
Several recent rivalries have shown patience that wasn't always common years ago. So if they're planning another emotional twist involving Sami, they don't need to rush. In fact, waiting makes it stronger. Fans start wondering. Speculation grows. Every Jacob Fatu appearance suddenly gets analyzed frame by frame like wrestling fans have become FBI investigators. Somebody somewhere has probably already paused a Jacob promo and circled a random facial expression with a giant red arrow. Was this a hint? Maybe. Maybe he was just blinking. Still, that's part of the fun. Let's not forget that Sami has always excelled when emotions, not championships, drive the story. His biggest moments weren't always title victories. Sometimes they were conversations. Sometimes they were betrayals. Sometimes they were impossible decisions. That's rare. Not every superstar can captivate audiences simply by standing in the ring looking conflicted. Sami can. Jacob, meanwhile, thrives in chaos. Put those personalities together in the same storyline, and you've immediately got emotional contrast. One represents destruction, the other represents resilience. That combination practically writes itself. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this theory and you love diving deep into WWE storylines like this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to WrestleCore, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss future breakdowns. It really helps the channel, and I appreciate every single one of you. Back to the theory. One possibility is that Sami doesn't return to the Bloodline because he wants revenge. Maybe he returns because someone else needs help. Maybe Jay. Maybe another superstar caught in the family's conflict. Maybe he simply refuses to watch history repeat itself again. Completely speculative, but it would fit Sami's character. Heroes don't always fight because they're angry. Sometimes they fight because they know exactly how much pain they're trying to prevent. That's very Sami Zayn. Jacob Fatu, intentionally or unintentionally, could become the catalyst that brings those emotions back to the surface. Not because Jacob has personal history with Sami inside WWE, but because Jacob represents the newest evolution of the family Sami once called home. That alone creates narrative possibilities. Another reason this theory has gained traction among fans is timing. Major losses often lead to major character changes. A failed championship pursuit forces wrestlers to ask difficult questions. What's next? Who am I now? Where do I belong? For Sami, those questions naturally point toward unfinished business. And unfinished business almost always makes compelling television. Will WWE actually go this direction? Nobody outside the company truly knows. Creative plans change, injuries happen, stories evolve. But if we're looking purely at storytelling logic, there are definitely pieces on the board that could fit together. Jacob Fatu continues strengthening the Bloodline narrative. Sami searches for purpose after championship disappointment. The history between Sami and the Bloodline remains one of WWE's richest storytelling resources.
Those are confirmed facts. Everything connecting them into one future storyline, that's the fan theory. And honestly, it's a pretty fun one. Whether Sami ultimately reunites with parts of the Bloodline, opposes them again, or simply crosses paths with Jacob Fatu in a completely different context, one thing is certain. Fans will care. Because they've invested years into these characters. That's something WWE can't manufacture overnight. It takes time, it takes trust, it takes storytelling that respects its own history. The Bloodline saga has delivered plenty of that. Jacob Fatu now represents the future. Sami Zayn represents one of its most emotional chapters. Bringing those worlds together again could create something special. Or WWE could surprise all of us with an entirely different direction. That's wrestling. The moment we think we've solved the mystery, somebody's entrance music hits, and suddenly our predictions age about as well as milk left in the sun. That's exactly why we keep watching, because anything can happen. And sometimes the craziest fan theories end up looking surprisingly smart a few months later. Or they end up being spectacularly wrong and we all laugh about them together while pretending we totally didn't spend 3 hours connecting imaginary dots. Either way, it's fun.
So, did Jacob Fatu really set the stage for Sami Zayn's return to the Bloodline story after his WWE title loss? Right now, there is no official confirmation that he did. But when you look at the history, the character arcs, the storytelling patterns, and the timing, it's definitely a possibility worth discussing. And if WWE decides to revisit one of its greatest modern rivalries through Jacob Fatu's rise and Sami Zayn's search for redemption, don't be surprised if this theory suddenly doesn't sound so crazy anymore. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Russell Core, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest WWE theories, breakdowns, and deep dives. And let me know in the comments, do you think Sami Zayn should return to the Bloodline story, or is it finally time for him to move on completely?